Democrats find President Trump abused his office, put his interests above the nation's, pressured Ukraine to influence our election, and blocked Congress from investigating his actions. The president blasts it all as a hoax as he wraps up his contentious trip overseas.
Also this morning, Senator Kamala Harris dropping out of the race for president. What she said and what it means for the rest of the shrinking Democratic field.
Breaking overnight. Two of the teens who made that Tennessee jailbreak caught. Now the race to find the other two still on the run. One charged with murder.
Anna Faris reveals her family's close call with carbon monoxide poisoning.
Had they gone to sleep that night, they likely would not have woken up.
How the holiday at a rental home ended at a hospital.
Taking the stand, the estranged husband of that missing Connecticut mother of 5 speaking out publicly in court for the first time.
Dunk denied. Refs blowing the call in a big game, saying this Houston Rockets slam dunk didn't count. Now the Rockets firing back.
And say hello to Bond. Yes, James Bond. The all-star cast of No Time to Die is here live, taking over Times Square. The exclusive debut of the brand new trailer, only on GMA.
Live in Times Square, this is Good Morning America.
Good morning, America, on this Wednesday. What do we call it?
Hump Day.
Hump Day, that's right. And we are excited, though, because the cast of Bond will be joining us today.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. But we do have a lot of news to get to. And George, as you said, a big day on Capitol Hill.
It certainly is. A new round of impeachment hearings set to begin, this time led by the House Judiciary Committee. They have just received that 300-page report from the Intelligence Committee making the case that President Trump has abused the powers of the presidency by pressuring Ukraine to investigate his political opponents and by conducting an unprecedented campaign of obstruction to prevent Congress from investigating his actions. Our senior national correspondent Terry Moran starts us off from the hearing room on Capitol Hill. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, George. Well, this morning, in just a few hours, with the bang of a gavel right up there, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler will begin that next phase of the impeachment process. This panel will begin the solemn task of weighing impeachment charges against President Donald Trump. And they will base their debates on all the evidence gathered by the House Intelligence Committee over the past few weeks under Chairman Adam Schiff.
This is not about Ukraine. This is about our democracy. This is about our national security.
Democrats are laying out their case against Donald Trump in a 300-page report approved by the House Intelligence Committee by a party-line vote last night. The report alleges the president pressured Ukraine to influence U.S. elections by demanding its leader publicly launch an investigation into Trump's rival Joe Biden, and that his administration held up nearly $400 million in military aid as part of that effort. And in a surprise, Democrats also accused some of those closest to the president, including Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, of being knowledgeable of or active participants in the president's scheme. Pointing to this moment, Mulvaney acknowledging in the White House briefing room that there was a quid pro quo.
I have news for everybody. Get over it. There's going to be political influence in foreign policy.
The report concludes the evidence of the president's misconduct is overwhelming, and so too is the evidence of his obstruction of Congress.
The president instructed witnesses not to appear. The president used his office and his bully pulpit to try to intimidate witnesses.
Overseas at a NATO summit, the president fired back.
I think Adam Schiff is a deranged human being. I think he grew up with a complex for lots of reasons that are obvious. I think he's a very sick man. And he lies.
Trump also claimed he would be open to some of his top advisors testifying in an impeachment trial in the Republican-led Senate, despite blocking every attempt by the House Intelligence Committee to obtain that very testimony.
So when it's fair, and it will be fair in the Senate, I would love to have Mike Pompeo. I'd love to have Mick. I'd love to have Rick Perry and many other people testify. But I don't want him to testify when this is a total fix. You know what a fix is a fix. Just think of it.
Back home, Republicans are standing by the president, issuing their own report.
They're having one big problem, and the big problem is the president did nothing wrong, and they can't prove it.
But Democrats continue to build their case, revealing new evidence uncovered after the last round of public hearings. Phone records between the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and the Office of Management and Budget. That's the agency that controlled the withholding of aid to Ukraine.
Certainly the phone records show that there was considerable coordination among the parties, including the White House.
Now Democrats say they're ready to move on to the next question in the impeachment inquiry.
The question now is, what does Congress do about this?
And that's what this hearing is going to be about. The panel will hear not from fact witnesses, but from constitutional scholars who will debate the question of whether the president, of what he is accused of, amounts to an impeachable offense. You can expect fireworks because this committee, the Judiciary Committee, is even more divided along partisan lines than the Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, one of the most partisan in Congress. Okay, Terry, thanks very much. Let's bring in our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, for more on this. And let's start with the report from last night, because as Terry said in his report, there was new evidence, the evidence of these phone calls between Rudy Giuliani and what looks like, most likely, OMB Chair, Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, and probably the president himself.
Right. Now, if you read the minority report, meaning the Republicans' report, it would indicate that Rudy Giuliani was basically advising the president sort of broadly on corruption in Ukraine. He was sort of serving as his emissary, but in a legal capacity, an advisory capacity. This would suggest that Rudy Giuliani was leading foreign policy in the area. And that's the key difference here, is if these phone calls can demonstrate that Rudy Giuliani was in fact leading this quote-unquote...
in contact with top officials.
Exactly, this irregular channel. That is exactly what many of the witnesses who testified were saying. That is what the Democrats are arguing. And that's why the phone calls are so important, because it separates that role of what the Republicans were saying Giuliani was doing, which is sort of broad corruption in Ukraine kind of advice, versus leading foreign policy, which would be a problem.
We also have the president saying he'd like to see his top aides testify. Of course, he blocked them from going to the House. And that was written about in the report as what they called an unprecedented act of obstruction.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a legal decision, right? To suggest, well, I'll let them testify when it's fair. That's not a legal objection. Up to this point, the reason that the president's closest advisors haven't testified is this claim of executive privilege or immunity from having to testify. The claim of I'll do it when it's fair is not really a legal. And look, as a practical matter, of course, the president's not going to have these people testify in front of the Senate either.
Okay, Dan Abrams, thanks very much. You'll be joining us for our coverage of the impeachment proceedings at 10 Eastern right here on ABC. Robin?
And George, as we heard, the president is blasting the impeachment inquiry and clashing with allies as he wraps up his final day at the NATO summit in London. Our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, is there with more. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Robin. As the impeachment drama plays out back home, the president is on the world stage, meeting on the outskirts of London with some of America's most important military allies.
This morning, a stone-faced President Trump shared the stage with some 30 other heads of state for a group photo with America's NATO allies. Here in London, the president received a warm welcome from the Queen at Buckingham Palace. But there have been tense moments here between President Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron.
That's a common enemy today.
Including this awkward exchange on the issue of what to do with ISIS prisoners in Syria.
They're mostly from Europe, and some of the countries are agreeing. I have not spoken to the president about that. Would you like some nice ISIS fighters?
Yes.
I can give them.
If you look at the situation,
you can take everyone you want.
It is true that you have foreign fighters coming from Europe, but this is a tiny minority of the overall problem we have in the region.
Another source of tension, trade, as the Trump administration is threatening steep tariffs on French products like wine and cheese in retaliation for new French taxes on American tech companies. Although President Trump predicted it will all be worked out.
We have a minor dispute. I think we'll probably be able to work it out. But we have a big trade relationship, and I'm sure that within a short period of time, things will be looking very rosy, we hope.
But on the issue of trade with China, the president has rattled markets by saying he may want to wait another year before making an agreement with the Chinese.
I have no deadline, no.
Mr. President,
in some ways, I think it's better to wait till after the election. You want to know the truth?
On the president's agenda today, a press conference that'll be happening just as the impeachment hearing is getting underway in the House Judiciary Committee. Michael?
All right, John, make sure we be tuning into that. And thank you. And now to the race for the White House in that major shakeup. California Senator Kamala Harris announced she's dropping out. Harris had been considered a top contender for the Democratic nomination, but faded after a strong start. Lindsay Davis is here with more. And Lindsay, this caught a lot of people off guard.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise announcement, and good morning to you, Michael. This is the same woman whose first campaign rally drew 20,000 attendees, and early comparisons between her and Barack Obama. And now with Senator Kamala Harris out, several candidates are already vying for her supporters. Senator Kamala Harris, who sought to be the first black female president of the United States and one of only 7 to qualify for the next Democratic debate, with that surprise announcement Tuesday that she's dropping out of the presidential race, calling it one of the hardest decisions of her life.
So here's the deal, guys. My campaign for president simply does not have the financial resources to continue. I'm not a billionaire. I can't fund my own campaign.
Harris telling staffers that over the course of Thanksgiving weekend, she was working around the clock to try to figure out how they could make it work. But after doing a campaign audit, she says she just didn't have the money to move forward.
I cannot tell you that I have a path forward if I don't believe I do.
Weekend, a sign that the campaign was unraveling with this scathing resignation letter from a Harris aide obtained by the New York Times, where she wrote, "I have never seen an organization treat its staff so poorly," adding, "I no longer have confidence in our campaign or its leadership." Harris's plateau in the polls was even joked about on SNL.
I'm just going to have fun and see if I can get some viral moments. Mama needs a GIF. Gonna tell my kids this was Michelle Obama.
But through it all, Harris and her team appeared to remain in good spirits. Tuesday night, her communications director tweeted this video showing the senator and her Baltimore staff laughing while doing the electric slide. She began the race with promise as a top-tier candidate, famously taking on Biden for his old opposition to federal busing to integrate public schools, but she was unable to maintain momentum from moments like this.
You know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Overnight, among the messages of support, her husband tweeted this photo with the caption, "I've got you, as always." Last night, the Castro campaign said that following Harris's departure, they had their biggest fundraising day of the quarter. Also last night, a curt exchange after President Trump tweeted, "Too bad, we will miss you, Kamala," to which Harris responded, "Don't worry, Mr. President, I'll see you at your trial." Some fighting words there on her departure. Right.
That's right. Thank you, Lindsay. There are new developments in the search for 4 teens who escaped from a juvenile facility in Tennessee. 2 of them were caught overnight as the search continues for the others. Steve Osunsami has the latest.
All 4 boys who escaped from this juvenile detention center in Nashville are seen here in this newly released surveillance video running from police custody Saturday night. Authorities at the facility say the teens were in the middle of a work detail and were being watched by a staff member when that staff member was called away to respond to a fight.
We had some youth escape from the juvenile detention center.
The 2 still on the run are both 17-year-olds, and even though they're underage, police are identifying them and saying that both should be considered dangerous. Morris Marsh is accused of murder. Police say he was involved in a targeted shooting that left 1 man dead. He was awaiting trial. Brandon Carruthers was being held on armed robbery charges, and for reasons that haven't been explained, police placed him on Tennessee's most wanted list. Several staff members are under investigation, including the one who, according to the report, left the youth unattended. The teens should have been assigned in their rooms at 9 p.m., but staff had them out cleaning at 9:42. In a report, the detention center says that 3 of their staff members will be fired over this and another suspended. Robin?
All right, Steve, thank you. We have an award now for Brant Jean. He is the brother of both of them, Jean, honored last night for the courtroom moment he forgave and hugged the Dallas police officer who murdered his brother. TJ Holmes is here with much more on this.
And Robert, you remember that? He not just pleaded with that judge, but almost begged, please let me hug the person that shot and killed my brother. An incredible moment in court. Well, he had the spotlight again last night, this time in front of a room full of police officers. And he had a message for them. Be better.
The younger brother of Botham Jean honored for this incredible moment that shocked a courtroom and touched the world.
Can I give her a hug, please? Please?
The Institute of Law Enforcement's Ethical Courage Award normally goes to police officers. This year, it went to 18-year-old Brandt for his extraordinary act of mercy towards the former cop, Amber Geiger, convicted of murder for shooting and killing his older brother inside his own apartment.
I'm truly grateful for this award, and I hope others can see the light in what I did.
In front of that police organization, Brandt used the spotlight to address the treatment of black men at the hands of police.
I want you all to know that I am not a threat, that young black males are not inherently dangerous or criminal.
That hug not only stunned the courtroom, but his own family, just moments after Geiger was sentenced to 10 years in prison for the murder. Brandt later telling GMA he had no regrets.
Every time I ask God for forgiveness, he forgives me. So who am I to not forgive someone who asks? I waited 1 year to hear I'm sorry, and I'm grateful for that. And that's why I forgive her. This is what you have to do to set yourself free.
And I want you to hear what he said to this group of police officers. He said, no other little brothers should have to model ethical leadership and forgiveness of a cop whose lack of training and discipline caused them to carelessly take the life of others. He's essentially saying, I shouldn't have been put in this position to have to be some kind of model of leadership, was his message. But that group he was in front of was a group that focuses on training police officers. So, see, he came in, he actually lives in St. Lucia with his family, flew in for this.
Wow, but he has been a model.
Message. He has, 18 years old, 18.
Wow. All right, thank you so much, TJ. And we're going to turn now to that slam dunk denied. ESPN reporting this morning that the Houston Rockets are hoping the NBA will take action for the call on this play. Rocket star James Harden racing down the court, dunking the ball, but the ref said the basket didn't count after the ball bounced out. Now, after the game, the crew chief said the basket should have counted. In the ball, it clearly went through the net, flipped around, and he almost should have got 4 points for that if it went in again. But he did score 50 points. The Rockets, they ultimately lost the game to the San Antonio Spurs in double overtime, 135 to 133.
By 2 points.
By 2 points.
By 2 points.
And if he had scored that, they never would have gone into overtime the first order second.
Who knows the rules? They don't have any videotape replay in the NBA?
Not like that. Not for those plays.
But the Rockets were up by 22. At one point, you
don't blame the Rockets.
Stop,
Rockets. Don't blame the Rockets.
Like that was the issue last night. Stop.
Spoken like
that's my hometown. You don't blame Houston. Get out of here.
Okay. We are following a lot of other stories this morning, including the warning from actress Anna Faris after her family was poisoned by carbon monoxide at a rental home.
And the tense moments on the stand, the estranged husband of that missing Connecticut mother of 5 testifying publicly for the first time. But first, let's go to Rob.
Good morning, Robin. The first of 2 storms coming in California. A bit of a mess this morning with heavy rain from San Francisco all the way down to San Diego. This different from last week's storms. It's a warm event, which means the snow levels are high. So let's go 3D on this and lift up the augmented reality and break it down for you. Flash flood watches are posted from really Anaheim over to San Bernardino, down to San Diego as well. And we could see 1 to 3 inches of rainfall, so that could cause some mudslides. You go above about 7,000 feet, Mount Whitney, you're going to get 18 inches of snow. We got winter weather advisories there. 1 to 3 feet of snow with winter storm watches posted for Northern California. That's with the second system that's coming in, a much more expansive system, more rain, more snow, and more in the way of wind. Time for your Sunday Cities now, brought to you by Wells Fargo.
Some clouds to start your Wednesday, but we're cold and dry after some overnight snow showers. Chance of a sprinkle after 2 o'clock today, so that's when the kids get off the bus. But for recess time, we're fine. We're just chilly at 44 degrees. We'll have the wind back tomorrow, your high 47 with sunshine. 50 for Friday, but then temperatures drop into the lower 40s for Saturday. At least it's going to be sunny for Toys for Tots. Hope to see you there. Next big weather maker for us, Monday with a few showers, and Tuesday with rain on and off all day.
You could just hear our conversation.
Yeah, Michael told you to go, but we wanted you to stay.
Thank you. They trump you. Wow.
A little bit of a backup westbound 80. That is because of an earlier accident. So. Dance for me, dance for me, dance for me.